Hello and welcome to the KWC Reads. I'm Alex Williams, and today I just have with me KWCs and Joe in spirit. Today we'll be reading Match 109, Varan vs. Krystalak by Christian Salibert. KWCs, take it away.
Alright, thank you for the introduction. Something a little different. The Crystallian terror known as Krystalak marched through the forests of Japan, searching for a source of energy to feed on. He had sensed a large power crystal and had been making his way towards it for the past few days, but it seemed that his long trek was finally at an end. Krystalak had reached the Katami River, and jutting out of the river's shores was an enormous glowing crystal, just brimming with energy. Krystalak grinned. He could almost taste the power radiating from within. As he approached the crystal, Krystalak trampled over a nearby village, destroying and crushing its screaming denizens underneath. The crystal was within reach now. His claws outstretched, Krystalak was about to grasp the glass-like tower, when suddenly a reptilian form exploded out of the river. Taken by surprise, Krystalak leapt away from the crystal and turned to face the sudden arrival, finding himself face to face with Varan, the unbelievable.
Varan. Wow!
Yeah, I know, he's amazing. His gliding ability is fantastic. Well, he does
1.5 miles? Wow!
Mach 1.5? Wow! Varan reared his head back and let loose with a fierce roar, commanding Krystalak not only get out of his territory, but to leave the crystal alone. Varan had long since claimed the crystal as his own, having become quite accustomed to feeding off its power, and he had no intention of letting someone else have it without a fight. Leaping into the air and soaring directly at Krystalak, Varan slammed into the crystal monster's gut, tackling him to the ground. Surprised and stunned by the sudden attack, Krystalak was slow to react as Varan smashed his fists into the sides of his head over and over. Sparks flew as Varan's claws collided with the crystal-like plating on Krystalak's face, withdrawing a cry of pain with each blow. As the spiked lizard prepared to strike him for the sixth time, Krystalak opened his jaws and unleashed a powerful prism beam, not to be confused with Batra's prism beam, blasting Varan in the face and sending him careening off his chest. Shaking his head to regain his wits, Krystalak climbed to his feet, his eyes zeroing in on Varan, who by now was back on all fours.
Oh yeah.
Gosh darn it. The crystal spikes on his back glowing. Krystalak unleashed another white beam. But just as the dirt at Varan's feet exploded, the mighty Obaki was already in the sky, circling his crystalline foe. Krystalak watched Varan circle him, waiting for the reptile to land. When it seemed like that wasn't going to happen, he fired another prism beam at his foe, but Varan skillfully avoided the blast. Nearing a large mountain, Varan kicked off with his feet, speeding directly towards the pinkish-white beast. But Krystalak was ready for him, snatching him in his claws and tossing him through the air, sending the giant reptile crashing into his back. Okay, I got one more. As Varan struggled to get back to his feet, Krystalak charged up another prism beam and let it fly, blasting the downed reptile. Rolling across the dirt, Varan roared in fury, getting back to his feet and rearing up onto his hind legs. Swinging his arms at Krystalak, Varan struck the creature in the chest with his claws, but the crystal beast barely felt the blows. Twirling himself around, Krystalak raked Varan across the face with the cluster of crystals at the end of his tail. Howling in pain, Varan staggered back, but he refused to give in. He leapt towards Krystalak, once again tackling him to the ground, but this time the crystal creature planted his feet into Varan's gut and kicked him away. Varan was quickly back on his feet this time, and as Krystalak got back to his, the Obaki leapt high into the air. Before Krystalak could react, Varan dropped down, slamming his feet into the beast's head and flooring him once again. Varan quickly lunged and bit down on Krystalak's tail, only to shrink back and shriek in pain, breaking several of his teeth on the rock-hard tail. As Varan clutched at his mouth, Krystalak rose to his feet and approached the reptile. Varan looked up in time to see Krystalak smash his crystalline fist into the lizard's chest, sending Varan crashing onto his back. The crystal monster reached down and snatched Varan's tail, lifting the Triphibian reptile into the air and spinning him around with it. Varan cried out as Krystalak twirled him through the air again and again, finally releasing him and letting him smash face first into a mountain pass.
Varan stumbled, dazed by the blow, as Krystalak let loose with a hiss-like laugh at his opponent. Flexing his claws, Krystalak closed in on Varan, ready to tear him into pieces, but the Obaki was ready for him by the time he reached him, once again lunging at Krystalak and taking him by surprise, knocking him on the ground. This time, however, Varan spread his membranes. Once more taken to the air, getting back to his feet, Krystalak watched as Varan settled on a tall cliffside not too far away. Roaring in annoyance, Krystalak called his foe back to fight, but Varan simply growled in response, almost as if he were taunting the crystal demon. Baring his teeth, Krystalak marched towards the cliffside, ready to scale it and continue the fight. Varan watched closely as Krystalak sank his claws into the side of the cliff and began to climb. The ancient reptile waited until his foe was halfway up, then leapt off the edge. His membranes unfolded, swerving around. Varan stuck Krystalak with his tail, dislodging the pink beast and sending him plummeting back to the ground. With a thunderous boom and pained grunt, Krystalak crashed onto his back. His crystal spikes jammed to the ground. Krystalak quickly realized he had a problem. A drinking problem. His spikes were stuck so deep in the earth he couldn't pull them out and get back to his feet. Varan landed not too far away, watching as Krystalak struggled to dislodge himself from the soil to no avail. Roaring loudly, Varan charged, tearing into the crystal monster with his teeth and claws. Krystalak cried out as he tried his best to defend himself from Varan's onslaught. But due to the awkward position he was in, he didn't do all that well. He tried to nail Varan with another prism blast, but the spiky reptile easily avoided the beam and went on with his vicious attack. Krystalak swung his arms around, trying to hit his opponent, but his strikes missed more times than they hit. Varan simply struck Krystalak again and again and again, unimpeded in his assault. Wrenching a small boulder out of the ground, Varan hurled it at Krystalak, breaking it on the beast's face. Krystalak shrieked in pain and anger as the rock shattered across his armor-plated face. Krystalak knew he had to do something or else Varan would be able to finish him off at his leisure. He focused his power channeling a large amount off into his crystalline heart, causing it to glow intensely. A moment later, a blinding white shockwave of energy erupted from Krystalak's torso, slamming into Varan and sending the Triphibian flying through the air. Varan groaned as he hit the ground and crashed into the landslide. Or hillside. The ground trapping his crystal spikes had been atomized in the blast. Krystalak jumped to his feet, snarling at Varan. Reptile, badly burnt, stumbled as he weakly tried to get upright once again. Krystalak marched up to the injured Varan and kicked him hard in the side, sending him flipping over. Back towards the river, another kick sent Varan even further back. Weakly, Varan turned to face his foe, still refusing to admit defeat. Krystalak eyed his foe carefully, his tail flexing behind him. Varan roared in defiance, taking it a step closer, causing Krystalak to spin around and whip his tail forward, unleashing a large crystal shard from its tip. The shred shot through the air like a dagger, lodging itself deep into Varan's throat. The mighty reptile cried out in agony as shard pierced his flesh. That kind of seems off.
It should be like as the shard pierced his flesh. Yeah, it's missing something.
Causing irreparable damage. Varan's cries became gurgled as he staggered back towards the river. Finally, Varan collapsed into the water, sinking to the bottom of the Kitami River. Krystalak reared his head back, letting loose with a roar of victory. His foe defeated, he turned back, faced the giant-powered crystal ready to claim his prize. Winner's Space Godzilla, because he'll beat the shit out of him and take the victory as his own.
Your children need to be disciplined, Space Godzilla. That's why he automatically gets the victory. But yeah, let's see. It's hard for me to really comment on this one, because this one feels like Space Guzzle is the abusive dad confirmed.
Yeah, don't you know Space Guzzle's a shitty OC that beats up his own shitty OC sons?
Oh, but yeah.
You have me, who's a very good father to Nagoda, and Space Guzzle, who's an asshole to his children.
Yes. But yeah. Honestly, it's hard for me to really comment too much on this particular match. I don't think this is like one of Christian's best. I think this is just a average run of the mill match. While it used to be the gold standard back in the day, it's it's average. I don't think there's anything like wrong with it, but it doesn't really stand out too much.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. It's your average, almost perfectly. You said it's average, and yeah, it's the standard for back then, but when you look at it now it's extremely generic. I mean, like I said, it's not inherently bad, it's just really forgettable and just your typical, oh, I want to mash these two monsters like I'm playing with my action figures. Yeah, there's really no story to it.
Not really.
And yeah, it's just the two of them fighting, just it. Again, not bad. It's neat, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm by tomorrow I'm gonna forget about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sadly, because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not like you could do too much. I think the kill was decent, but it's like, I think we're gonna get crazier stuff in the future, and I think we've already experienced crazier stuff already. So, it's just decent all around. I will say, I kind of like the banner for this one.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one.
Oh, really?
I don't like the banner at all.
Aw.
The image, the still from the movie is fine. I just don't like how Krystalak is placed or how, the model they got for him. It looks extremely out of place. It's basically a toy line put in the frame of a movie.
Well, okay, I see what you mean just by simply sticking it in there. I think...
Yeah, it looks like a sore thumb.
A little bit, yeah. I think it could have used some extra filtering that could have made it blend in better. Some extra blurring, some extra filtering, so that way it looks like something from the movie. I don't think the figure's bad. I think the way he's positioned's fine. It just needed some minor editing.
Yeah. Because it really does look out of place. Mm-hmm. Compared to the Krystalak versus Mechanic Kong one, yeah, that's a still from the movie, but at least Krystalak was better utilized.
Mm-hmm. Or better implemented, yeah.
Yeah.
I will give credit at least to this, that it's a black and white banner. I think this is
Yeah, it's really neat, and at least they got something right with the Krystalak in there.
Mm-hmm. Right, so...
Where I can't believe it's black and white, but... that Krystalak's just awful.
So, I guess it's really hard. Honestly, yeah, this one's just really hard to give extra thoughts on, just because, not much to it. That can't be helped, I suppose. Hopefully,
probably the shortest one of this season.
Oh, one of the shortest for sure. But who knows? Maybe the next match will present something. Maybe the match after that will present something. We'll have to see. In the meantime, we'll see you guys next time for match 110. Till then, folks.
Yeah.